Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope that everybody had a good holiday. We also came off a 3-day weekend here, so if you're anything like us, that puts you behind the eight ball with DOT and getting everything accomplished that we need to get accomplished. But we're all getting through it. And like they were just talking about the snow scraper, we had ours up, using that as well. Our last meeting. Okay, two other people are coming in. All right. There's a few more. All right, so our last meeting was held on December 13th, 2023. Mickey Jones with Capital Region BOCES presented on fuel island inspections and what DEC is looking for. So those surprise inspections when they show up and they have these new regulations that they're looking for, or things that we didn't know about. And some of the things that she talked about was that, of course, there's always very little notice given before an inspection. The inspection intervals are usually once every 3 years. There are 3 categories of inspections. I won't go through all this stuff because it is on our YouTube channel. I sent everybody the link. Tanks must be registered every 5 years, and it's your responsibility to make sure that it gets done. They do it as a courtesy. They'll send you a update, a notification saying that your tanks need to be recertified, but they don't have to do that. So we all need to be up on that. You have to have as-built drawings on the premises when they come for an inspection. So each tank has one of those. Your dispenser fuel pumps, no fuel leaks. Under cabinets or dispenser sumps have to be clean and dry. No signs of any leaks. Spill bucket and sump, no liquid should be present for more than 2 hours. So if it's on the ground, it's got to be cleaned up. Tank monitoring and leak detection, your systems have to be up and running. We're all using the digital ones these days, but they all have to be working. You have to have all of your forms. Mr. Ballard, how you doing? The meeting is being recorded and will be posted to our channel. Above ground tanks also have to be inspected. Record keeping should be kept for about 3 years. You need a spill plan. Drum storage of 55 gallons have to be you have to have the tanks for those. Spills are reported to DEC no more than 2 hours after the spill is found. Oil water separators have to be checked. And she gave us some resources of where we can get more information, and Capital Region BOCES was one of them. And she said that anytime that we want a refresher, or any of us want her to do this presentation again, and I was thinking maybe it's a good idea to do this one once a year. I look for your feedback, and because it's something that we all have to deal with. But those were just some of the highlights from the meeting that I took notes on. So definitely, I sent the link to everyone, so definitely watch that one. That was a good one. Today's presenter will be Elisabeth Fox. She's the Director of Auxiliary Services at Johnson City School District. And she's had some prior experience at another district that she was at. And they had, I think, 4 electric buses there. She has 1 electric bus now, and she's going to talk to us about the pros and cons of what she's found in operating a partially electric fleet. So go ahead, Elisabeth.
Good morning, everybody. First, I want to thank Dan for inviting me to talk to this group. I'm excited to talk to a group of mechanics about the electric bus and sort of my experience in implementing them and overall just talk about electric buses. And then at the end, just some real life obstacles, what we are seeing as far as our mechanical issues and how we were getting through them. All right. So why are we doing this? So we're going to see that there will be an environmental impact. Our goal is to reduce greenhouse gases, improve local air quality, and help contribute to climate change mitigation. Equity impact. When we talk about equity and an equitable transition with our electric school buses, we want to keep in mind that we are trying to affect the areas within our community that are experiencing the most diesel exhaust pollution. And so we're going to be mindful as we're implementing our first vehicles that we get into our fleet. Health impact. So the clean school buses, it provides a healthier environment for students, drivers, technicians, and then again in the community as we're decreasing the diesel exhaust. And then our financial impact, hopefully we'll be able to see over the lifetime of the vehicle that they are less to operate, and potentially down the road, they could provide a stream of revenue for school districts. So what is happening? Many of you probably know that currently there is a mandate within New York State. 2027, we're expected to buy zero emission vehicles going into our fleet, and by 2035, we will be required currently to have all zero emissions. Now, some school district like the one I'm currently at, we really believe that, and we're committed to electrifying our school buses in our fleet. And we really see this as a teaching and learning tool as we're implementing our first vehicle, and we're providing ways for students to learn as we're transitioning. Because really our students that are in school now, they're really going to be the generation that's impacted by this electric vehicle transition. So when we talk about a road to an electric school bus fleet, we want to make sure that we are connected to our district goals. We're definitely going to educate the community, our staff, on infrastructure and operations and how it affects that. We're going to engage key stakeholders as far as community, Board of Education members, teachers. We want to make sure that we're collecting data and we are on performance, any learnings and any benefits that we are seeing. And so this is where you as mechanics really play a big role. If you're not involved in the initial meetings to begin with, if you're implementing an electric bus, it's good to have your voice heard about any concerns you have, because you guys will be the ones that are troubleshooting any problems that you see. And I'm sure that you will be called on to collect data for reporting back to the community and other stakeholders. We want to explore and secure funding. Right now, there's a few avenues of funding that we can receive to buy an electric school bus. And so right now I'm going to talk a little bit about Ithaca's path as we were implementing school buses. And so one thing that made us very successful in implementing 5 school buses pretty quickly was creating a team and making sure that that team was meeting on a regular basis. And so the manufacturer that we had chose there was New York Bus Sales. And then our architect, and now they are a flex tech provider, is Tetra Tech. Our IT director was involved. Business official is very critical. Facilities director, transportation supervisor, and fleet manager. And then electricians and construction management. So these were all people we had around our table. And this is a little bit about what each person was responsible for within our meetings. And so the business official is critical because they look at all ways of funding. And so they're looking at reserve funds for our bus purchases, our general fund, how that can be leveraged for some of these projects or maybe one or two chargers, capital projects, as we talk about full infrastructure. And then it's necessary to have them to develop a budget specifically around this EV project. The facility director, it's important to have them involved as well because they know the existing bus garage site services. They have relationships already with municipalities, partners like local BOCES, and then with existing staff and contractors for the district. So it's important to have them at the table as well. IT director, as we know, our chargers have to be connected to service, whether it's a SIM card with cellular service or it's a Wi-Fi connection. And so in order to have them on that, and then they could be in your district involved with software management. And so it's important to have that conversation with them early on. Transportation director, fleet manager, you guys are the experts within your transportation system. And so it's really important that administration is hearing how it will affect your operation and how you are going to implement it and how it will affect your staff. These were our partners. As you can see, we had a construction management company, Campus. Nelcorp was the electrical company that put in our chargers. Tetra Tech was our flex tech provider, and New York Bus Sales was our manufacturer at the time. And so you'll see here just a quick summary of how we purchased them. And so we utilized the New York's voucher truck incentive program, which we received $200,000 per bus towards the purchase of our 5 buses. We did apply for the EPA round 2, although Ithaca was not awarded that. And they are planning a capital project of about $11 million in 2026 to complete infrastructure work. Again, this is just a visual. As you can see, this was a tool that we had shared with the board and with the community to align the staging of our chargers as they were going in and procurement of the buses. And this is just another visual tool to show that. So 1A, we added 4 level 2 chargers, and there was very minimal infrastructure change. We already had that available for our service. For 1B, we planned on doing a panel upgrade to allow for 4 more chargers to be installed. And then when we get to stage 2, that's where we're talking about the capital project and infrastructure to sustain a full electric fleet. So now let's talk about Johnson City a little bit. So we do have different partners here. We work with Leonard's and IC. And our first bus actually just arrived January 10th last week. And our second one will be arriving in spring 2024. Right now we have 1 level 2 charger installed within our bus bays, and we do have current infrastructure for a second level 2 charger. We do plan on a 3rd level 2 charger being installed within our service bay. And right now we're working on capital project for 2025 for full electrification. So similarities that I found implementing in both school districts is building a team like we talked about. Those members has been very critical. We meet on a regular basis weekly. We're aligning project phasing with bus procurement and funding sources. And then both places we have planned to pilot buses within current infrastructure. And so I feel really strongly that every school district has within either a school building or a bus garage means for electricity for 1 level 2 charger. And so just to pilot 1 bus to see some of the issues that are going on and what you will face as you start to electrify is really important before the pressure is on, before the mandate. So here you'll see a picture of our ribbon cutting ceremony at Johnson City. I feel like at Johnson City, we are very lucky to have community partners that are very interested in this work. Of course, we have Leonard's Bus Sales that were very supportive in there for this event. Binghamton University has a battery and storage program and that just received grant funding, and they plan on working up with us to provide students opportunities. We have a battery factory right here in Endicott. And so they plan on providing factory tours for our students as they're learning about sustainable energy and about our transition to electrical vehicles. BAE Systems currently helps design and create electric airplanes and also electric transit vehicles. NYSERDA was also very helpful in partnering with us. And then Cornish Technology, they are the partner for Leonard's as far as an energy consultant and flex tech provider as well. Again, you'll see another picture here. And so although this is our first electric school bus, you can see we have a electric transit van that is utilized by our community team. They take food and clothing donations. It's also been shared with our athletic director to pick up equipment, and then our IT department as well to transport hardware back and forth between schools. And so far, we've seen that staff really enjoys using these electric vehicles. And then you'll see the Ford Lightning on the right side. Our head of maintenance drives that right now, and he loves that as well. So some things to take into consideration when implementing. You want to look at what routes are optimal to be electrified, because as you're piloting, you're going to come across these problems. And so we want to make sure, one, that it's a route that can easily accommodate it. And then two, what population are we serving and what area in the community are we serving? We want to provide first responder training. We are planning on doing that in person next week here. Leonard's will be providing that. I think so far they have close to about 70 attendees. And so being the first in Broome County, there's a lot of interest in that. And I think that's important that our first responders are well aware of what could happen for the safety of our students. You want to think about how will EV buses change your operation? Could there be union issues, bidding processes, charge of location? If not at a garage, how would that change how we do our daily jobs? Picking which bus drivers drive these electric vehicles. One, they're very expensive, so we want to make sure that they are safe drivers. They're not backing into things with our brand new bus. They're also advocates for electric vehicles. We want to make sure that we have someone with a positive mentality about them, but then also is very critical in finding issues that you're having. And so that way you're able to educate your other drivers. We want to provide charging management training for all dispatching staff. The last thing we want to do is have a bus out on the road with students. And so making sure that we're well aware of how our buses are charging and that they're ready to perform on the route that's they're picked for. You might want to create an internal training process for drivers to drive electric vehicle. And that's just to protect our students, and they are, again, a very expensive bus. And so protect your asset as well. And so that could actually look like most manufacturers do provide training and a slide deck where they'll come in and they will train the drivers. But an internal training process could look like a specific pre-trip that they're doing and then taking them out behind the wheel without students for a set amount of hours and making sure that they are fully safely able to drive that bus before you're putting it on route with kids. We want to make sure we're providing mechanic training ahead of time, and your manufacturer will help you with that. Some grant opportunities. We want to always make sure we're exploring and researching any opportunities. Right now, there's opportunities through the EPA, the Clean School Bus Program. Right now, round 3 will be ending, I believe, on the 31st of January. NYSIB is NYSERDA's New York State Bus Incentive Program that they just released. So funding will be available for that. And that right now is for the buses, but in January, they will be releasing applications for charging and infrastructure applications. And so I'm sure that there'll be more information out on that. The New York State Truck Voucher Program, I believe, still has money and was a very easy application to fill out. At this time, from the research we've done and working with Leonard's Bus Sales, it seems like NYSIB is, as far as when they have money, would provide more money for your application. And so for our school district, we've been able to apply just by ourselves, but for some smaller school districts, you might want to work on a program together where districts are working together to fill out applications. Or if you have a local BOCES that you can use as a resource, you should always check in with them. So some grant eligibility tips. You want to plan for gathering data on your electric bus. What is your current routing system? How do you track your fuel? Do you have GPS telematics in place? And again, you mechanics are going to be probably heavily leaned upon to help collect the data on these things and any cost that you're putting into that electric vehicle as well. So those are some things to think about ahead of an electric vehicle arriving. You want to help find community partners that will support your project, student groups, city or county programs, union associations. They could be called upon to submit a letter of support for funding. And then, do you at your school have any sustainability policies or subcommittees for your Board of Education? This also could help in any future funding opportunities. All right, so let's talk about some growing pains with new technology. And so I was able to sit with Kyle within the last week and really talk about what he's been seeing there in Ithaca. They've been having some issues with their chargers. And so why the buses are sitting on the chargers overnight, instead of them going to a complete status, they go to a suspended status. And so although they get charged to 100%, the batteries are not staying warm. And so in order to warm those batteries to leave, it's starting to lose battery already while it's still charged. And so part of that is the energy management software and working out some of those kinks there. He talked about some errors coming up on the vehicles, and the best way to reset them is to cycle it off, but then you actually have to take the key out and wait 10 to 20 seconds and then restart it. And that's actually to make sure that the bus is reset, and then they'd see some of those codes or those lights come off, and then it was fine. They did run into an issue with their air compressor on one of the vehicles. So they had to order a new air compressor. When the new air compressor came in, it was damaged. And so they had to order another one. I believe he said it was the third one they ordered that finally came in undamaged, and they were able to replace it. They've had some bad sensors that will show motor at a high temperature. They've had at least 2 of those, and they've switched those out. One thing that he's learned is to precondition the inside of the cabin while the bus is still plugged in. And so you're actually warming the bus and using the energy from the charging station and not the battery before you even get on the road. So there was also 2 buses that had a programming issue in a module that when the bus got to 40% battery, that the heaters would actually turn off. And so in order to fix those, they had to replace the 2 modules on those vehicles. He did want to just say that the response time from Cummings for Bluebird was very quick. Every time he's had a problem, they were very responsive. Because I know that's one of the mechanics' concerns, is that if your bus goes down, and we know it's going to go down, is how long is it off the road before we can get back in service? So it's definitely been cold in Ithaca lately. They've definitely seen a drop in performance. Part of that is due to this suspended charging. But they are definitely seeing that a couple of the buses, at least, they are running in the morning, and then they're charging them and then sending them out in a different vehicle in the afternoon. And that's just because of the cold weather. They're really not seeing too much of a performance change with the hills that they're climbing, because they do have that regenerative braking and that energy is going back into the battery. But the cold is really starting to affect the performance lately. Kyle did suggest with the 55 passenger bus, they do have springs. And so he recommended that to go with the 70 passenger. It was not much longer. I don't have the specs on that, but it was able to fit within his garage and had air suspension on it. And he did say that the vehicles are about 800 pounds more. So make sure that you are, looking at one, where you're parking, and if it can hold that, and then 2, can your lift sustain that? All right, so here's just some questions and answers. We already went over most of that, and we can look at that later. There's some contact information for myself and Kyle. I did get permission from him that if any of you mechanics wanted to reach out to him, he'd be more than happy to help you with any questions that you have. And then I did reach out to one of the bus drivers that is driving every single day, and he loves the regenerative braking. The fans still at times when it's really cold and they're running constantly can make the bus not as loud as a diesel bus, but not as quiet as an electric bus would be without the fans on. He said it is making a big difference with the behavior with the students and that you can hear much better. He said overall, with the pros and cons, he really loves driving the bus. Today, for example, he started with 90 miles to empty and returned 33 miles later with only 20 miles to empty. And as you can tell, today is a pretty cool day up there. But overall, it seems like it's going well. The aide also, I talked to the aide on that bus as well, and he said he is seeing a big difference as far as student behavior and how quiet it is on that bus. So at this time, I'm done with my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I will do my best to answer them. I was happy to see Cody Shamrock was on this call as well. He is one of the supports that I have here in Johnson City from Leonard's and is very knowledgeable on this topic as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Elizabeth, is anybody asking questions? I keep losing the connection back and forth.
You're the first person I've heard, so.
Okay. I got just a couple questions for you. You said you had 2 EV buses currently?
So we just received our first electric bus here. So far, we have some scheduled teaching and learning events with the school. And then we plan on putting it route here in the next couple weeks. In Ithaca, we had 5 buses on the road before I left, and that was the fleet manager, Kyle, who I put in the contacts, who I just reached out to, and some drivers as well.
Oh, okay. Because I was looking for if or maybe you might know. Did they ever have any cost per mile for the electric? Because I can't get an answer from anybody here on my cost per mile. We have 6 buses going on 7 right now, and I have no answers. So I can't do cost per mileage electric to diesel.
So I would say I don't have enough information to give you that, but I'm more than happy to start collecting that data on my end. And when I'm ready to share it, I can pass that along to Dan.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be really good. We actually we just lost internet too, and we're just now back. So we did see that as well. I had a question on this. Could you explain a little bit more about? You said that your chargers, when they're charging the bus overnight, they go into a suspended mode, and that's different than like a I guess when a battery is fully charged, it goes into a maintaining mode.
Yes, so correct. So that is different. Again, that was a problem with the energy software. And so from my understanding, when it goes into that suspended mode, it actually stops talking to the bus. And so it stops charging and it's not maintaining the battery and maintaining the charge. And so when they were getting into the bus to drive it, it was no longer at a full charge.
Okay. And you said something about the batteries the temperature not being maintained.
Correct. Yep. That's what I understand. And so that's happened quite a few times. And I know they're still working on that. But that will definitely solve some of that performance issue that they're seeing in these cold temperatures.
Yeah. From what we've learned from all of the presentations on the electric buses, and that's all of them, the battery temperature is key.
Yep.
Do you have a maintenance cost comparison between the electric buses and the gas or diesel? Because when I ran the numbers I got from what it was going to cost me for my yearly maintenance that I couldn't do in the shop, it was going to wipe out anything. It was going to make it negative for anything positive that happened on the maintenance side, because it's a service that only the dealer can do, and it's going to cost me more than what the regular maintenance on a gas or diesel would.
I mean, there's still going to be stuff that you can do, like obviously changing light bulbs and brakes and all of that. But I believe I have not been operating them long enough to really give you that information, but a lot of the work is covered under warranty by the manufacturer. And like I said, I think it would be difficult to start 2027 and just start buying vehicles. I would really push and challenge people to try to get one in their fleet and start working through some of these obstacles on their own so they know what they're going to face.
Well, from my understanding, there's a yearly maintenance that has to be done by the dealer that you pay for. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but that maintenance from the dealer costs me more than my average maintenance that I do on my bus.
I see Cody's raising his hand. He probably has that answer.
Yeah. So on the IC bus anyway, there's no scheduled yearly maintenance on the dealer side. We would obviously handle anything high voltage or powertrain related, but as far as coolant changes, flushes, filters, to Liz's point, brakes, tires, light bulbs, all of that is still the same. Really, it's not much different than having a Cummins or Ford engine or whatever that's under a warranty. You're not touching that stuff anyway, and these are fairly similar. But yeah, I don't think there's enough vehicles out there in our neck of the woods anyway that we could point to a really specific figure this early on. As you know, buses don't age gracefully all the time, and years 7, 8, 9, and 10 are where we really want to see those numbers. We just don't have EVs out there that are that old.
John Hazelton.
Yeah, Cody, maybe you can answer this for me. I talked to my dealer and kidding around with him because in the slideshow it said that a 1 day turnaround time or whatever recovery time for the dealer to show up to look at your bus. I kidded with our dealer because I said, yeah, we're the first ones with an EV bus. It might be 1 day, but when numerous people in our district, who takes precedence? The one that buys the most buses or the one that bought them first?
Yeah, that's interesting. And depending on who you buy from or what vehicle you're buying is going to change how service is handled. You know, on our side, I was talking to Liz a little bit before the meeting. We can service the bus bumper to bumper. We have technicians that actually go to the Navistar headquarters and get certification to work on EV. So we've taken the stance that every technician that can work on a diesel or gas or propane engine is also becoming EV certified, so that doesn't become a problem. Because to your point, yeah, we have, you know, a handful of EVs out there, and let's say one guy in the area is certified, he can keep up with that. But when there's, you know, 500 of them, that changes things a little bit. So I can't speak for the other dealers, but we are certifying every technician we hire to be an EV tech, including the service managers, so that they can be a resource as well.
Are you guys going to be certifying outside people like my mechanics here to be able to work on, because we can't even down a bus yet because we're not certified to touch them.
Yeah, so
basic maintenance, but now you can't do the level 3 work on them.
Right. And I think, at least from our side, the manufacturer has basically said, as of right now, no, nobody else other than dealer technicians will be certified. I think what will happen, though, you know, kind of building on your earlier thought, is they're going to have to allow other people to do these things once there are enough of them out there. I think early on, and this comes from every manufacturer, the technology is new enough that they want to sort of control who's working on it and keep an eye on things closely, which is a lot easier when you have just, you know, a handful of dealer technicians doing it as opposed to several hundred people across the state. But right now there's no training other than, you know, basic service training for at least our bus.
Roger.
Agree with Cody. The manufacturers at this point in time are just not willing to release this to the customer level. It will be as soon as we know what the hell we're doing with it, as well as the factories at a point where they finalize the components. Understand, with any of these electric vehicles, these are brand new vehicles. This is like buying the first car off a production line with all untested components in it. And there's stuff in here that we didn't anticipate were going to break, and they did. You know, we're changing that stuff out, and this is a learning experience for every one of us here. And we're, you know, same as Cody, we're doing everything we can to make sure there's as many technicians as possible as that we can physically afford at this point in time. But obviously the customers are our number one. We have to take care of you people. That's how we make a living.
I do think that you probably will see the time that it takes to service these vehicles also go down as you guys learn. Like, you're going to see sort of the repeated problems just like anything else. And so they're, like Roger said, they're learning also how to service these vehicles. And so I'm sure they'll get quicker as more get out on the road and they keep seeing the same problems.
I think that's a really good point too. I mean, we've already identified a handful of fault codes that we know are actually meaningless, but the bus doesn't quite know what to do with it yet. So we're already seeing that. And I think the other thing too is, all of you being in the shops know that there's a by the book way to handle things, and then there's an I have experience way to handle things. And right now, everything we're doing is very much having to be done by the book. You know, follow steps 1 through 35 and hit every bullet point. And as they're out there more and we see repeat problems, we can skip the first, 28 steps and go right to the real problem. So it kind of, I do think, to your point, Liz, that it will get faster as people become more comfortable and well-versed in what the weird things are that we see with these.
Any other? Well,
Yeah, on your presentation, you said that you should pick the optimum routes for your electric buses, but the governor's telling us we gotta have every bus electric, so every bus is an optimum route.
Yeah, but as you're piloting them, in order to make it easier on yourself, most school districts opt to gauge in a fleet study to see which bus can easily be electrified. And so we know as we get closer to that 2035 mandate, if that still stays in place during that time, that you're going to have more difficult runs. And we don't even want to think about sports trips at this time. But when you're talking about piloting one or two buses, which one can you easily do? And then also what community what area in your community can benefit from that first. And so those are really the couple things you want to look at, because we know there's going to be issues and we don't want to choose the most challenging route to try it out on.
But that's what we're gonna do. And then I'll give you the numbers of how they stand up.
I mean, I think the other thing is you're going to see over this period of time that batteries are going to change drastically. There's going to be a lot of innovation. You're going to see that the range is going to increase as we move on year after year.
hey, Elizabeth, have you had to flush any of the coolant systems on your buses?
I have not. No.
Not yet. Cody and Roger both spoke on that. I forget what the interval was for flushing the coolant system for the batteries and all that. You guys remember what that was?
I'd have to check the exact number. It's quite, I think it's 2 years, and I don't remember the mileage. I can look it up before the end of the meeting here, hopefully.
Yeah, it was
just
critical though.
Oh yeah, and it needs to be done. I mean, cooling is like fuel to these things. They have to have proper cooling. So I'll look up the number, and it's something you guys can do. That's not a dealer,
Right.
At least on our vehicle.
And then in an instance where like they have, where the bus went into the chargers went into a suspended mode, would that deplete the battery? And,
No.
and would
No,
that?
the lithium-ion batteries don't lose charge, but they lose the ability to give charge back.
Okay.
It's like, I use the simile, it's like a human. We work real good at 70 degrees, but we don't work very well at 20. The same thing with a lithium-ion battery. If you bring it to temperature, it'll have its charge.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if it isn't maintained at temperature, you can't give its charge back. Now, our coolant change is 5 years. Our only other fluid that's a change fluid is power steering. That's 5 years as well. And that's standard coolant in both cases. Standard coolant, standard fluid.
Okay, so if you had a charger that was constantly doing this to the battery, would that affect the warranty on the battery?
It's warranty is based on charge cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically, if you're charging and uncharging more than a norm, it would affect the life of the warranty on it. But that's typically not a situation. But chargers are one of the things we talked about in the past. You really have to have the charger built to do the job. And if the charger is turning off, and we've had that problem with some units already, all of a sudden the battery temperatures go down because if the batteries are under a charged state, the battery heaters are on, and they're maintaining that temperature. We do have a couple preconditions. And again, if you want to heat the bus before the bus is put in service during the day, your charger and your bus have to be set up for that. And that's a question you have to ask your manufacturer. I want these batteries, I want the heaters on while the bus is charging. And we can make certain that that's done at the first point. And if that's a question you've never asked, shame on you. You should ask for it, especially in our climate.
Oh yeah, ever since you said that at that meeting, I've been telling everybody.
So Dan, our number real quick, I was off. It is 5 years or 150,000 miles for coolant. So I just
Okay.
checked.
Yeah.
All right.
The one thing I really didn't get into much that I just want to bring up before we get off is the scrappage. And most of the time the mechanics are called upon for that as well, for scrapping these eligible vehicles that we get funding for. And so just checking in with your local scrapyard. There was a gentleman, Barry Carr, through CNY Clean Cities Coalition. And so he helped me put in the ticket through the state with the truck voucher application number, and is working on setting up a appointment at our local scrapyard. And that does have to be done 30 days within receiving the vehicle. And so I just think that's important for you guys to sort of look into ahead of getting a vehicle, because you probably will be called upon to help with that.
Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
Elizabeth, I just have a question, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in your presentation, but Ithaca runs their buses in the morning, but not in the afternoon?
No, so I believe the optimal plan would be to run them both. But there have been times where, there's been issues or these chargers haven't been corrected yet. And so we know as they're piloting them and running into these problems where they've had to run them in the morning and then jump in another bus for the afternoon just because they were having these issues. Does that make sense?
It does. Do you know what kind of chargers you guys are using?
Yeah, they're using level 2 chargers right now, and the brand is Autel. And so the charging management is through Polera Energy. Now, the one I have currently, we haven't ran enough to tell you what problems we might run into, but we do have in charge a level 2 charger here at Johnson City.
John Hazelton.
Yeah, Elizabeth, one last question. On your chargers, you said you're getting a couple more buses or a couple more chargers this spring. Are you having issues getting chargers? The reason I'm asking is because we ran we had to run a new substation and do infrastructure underground because our building is maxed out now on the chargers we have. That's all in place now, finished a couple months ago, but I was informed that our chargers actually aren't showing up to maybe next December.
So both dealers, New York Bus Sales and Leonard's, we really didn't have any problems getting chargers. And I don't know if that's just because they already had them or, so I don't know if maybe Cody can speak to that. We were able to get ours very quickly from both dealers.
Yeah, so we work with InCharge, or IC Bus works directly with InCharge. They actually have a plan on their side anyway that we can't deliver the bus until the charger is installed, and that's just a factory requirement. So that agreement with InCharge helps them keep things moving as much as possible so that bus delivery isn't delayed. I'm sure there will be a delay at some point somewhere along the way, but generally it's pretty quick. We haven't had any issues getting chargers so far.
Yeah, we have the small chargers on the building, the level 2 ones, but our building's maxed out, like I said. So that's why we're going to the big, I call them the refrigerator chargers, the big ones out.
Oh, so the level 3 charger?
Yeah, and like I said, the infrastructure's done. So I asked our O&M department where we're at. And he says, we're looking maybe December. Well, when they say December, I'm thinking March because it's always a couple months after what they really tell me. So I'm just curious on the big level 3s if people are having issues or procuring.
So we were going to install one here before I came, and we just decided that for the cost of that charger and the cost to install it, for what we really needed to pilot, it would be much more cost effective to just install level 2. So Leonard's actually ended up taking that back. But as far as from the experience I've heard, that level 3 charger came in very quickly as well. They weren't going to have to wait to install that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, one last question. You said you're piloting right now. How many buses are in your fleet at Johnson City?
So we have one currently. We have another one arriving in the spring.
I'm sorry, I mean total, your total fleet.
Oh, our total fleet. So right now we have about 40 vehicles, but they just recently went from a 2-tiered routing system to a 3-tiered, and so we've actually cut routes. So in service, our route is we have about 25 routes.
Okay.
Ithaca, they had about 88 buses and about 64 routes.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my numbers together because we have 7 now, and to replace my 100 and some buses by 2735, that's basically 27, you can't buy a gas bus. To project them out over the next 10 years, just trying to get those numbers together, how many I have to replace every year for that size. I don't know where you guys are at on that.
And I know so I worked with Tetra Tech in Ithaca and now Cornice in Johnson City. And I know through the Flex Tech program, talking to both of them, that's something that they will help put together. And like very useful visual tools for the procurement in order to fit the mandate and with the phasing. So that way you can use that to present it to your board or administrators.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I'm looking at 9 buses every year from now to forever till I'm gone. Because by 2035, I got to start replacing the electric buses I have now.
Yeah.
On our fleet replacement plan. Thank you.
Ken Scarletta.
Good morning, Elizabeth. Thank you for the presentation. We've been discussing here long-range planning. How do you estimate a trade-in value on these, especially since you're getting $200,000 in grant money? Have you given any thought to that? Thank you.
So you mean at the end of the life of the bus, right?
End of the life cycle of the bus.
So yeah, we've thought about that. And one of the things was making sure that it can be, what is the percentage of the battery being able to be recycled? There's so many different creative ways that you can get rid of surplus material from school districts now. I know in Ithaca, we were posting on Facebook Marketplace, and we were having our business officials do that, and we were able to create quite a bit of revenue just even on our diesel buses and older vehicles we were getting rid of. But I do think that there probably will be a use for these batteries coming out of a vehicle at the end of 10 years. I don't know what the cost of that would look like, probably not near what we're purchasing these vehicles for. But I do think that we'll be able to find a use for these batteries for other avenues, obviously not school buses, but there'll be a use after.
Thank you. I know it was a hard question to answer.
Yeah, and I might not have all the answers, but we're just dipping our toes in and trying to share what we're learning with each other.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? If you think of any questions, or you just want Elizabeth to maybe do another presentation for us as things move on, please let me know. Elizabeth, I want to thank you for your presentation. It was a lot of good information there. And again, it doesn't matter the size of the district, especially at this point, how many buses we're talking. We all need to be on board with how this is working out for the people that do have it. And like I said, us here at Shen, we're scheduled to get, and we're scheduled to get 4, and we're just now getting ready to put in chargers and stuff. So as we get going, I will present on that, but we're just starting. So it's important that we all, there was 19 cameras here at one point. There's a lot of people that everybody's on board with this. So I appreciate your expressing where you stand with all this stuff as well.
Yeah, and I would encourage them just to definitely look at your maintenance and grounds vehicles if you help maintain them as well, because I do see those, although it's not mandated, I do think that eventually down the road school districts might switch. And so when you're talking about charging, if you did have to charge extra smaller vehicles, you got to keep that in mind as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So our next meeting will be scheduled. It is scheduled for February 14th, 2024. Cody Shamrock with Leonard Bus will be presenting on the next generation IC bus and the numerous changes. So this is, I think it's not the EV bus. Is that right, Cody?
Yep, just the next gen diesel, which includes EV, but yeah, diesels primarily.
Right. He did a small part of the presentation here for us, and there was so many changes that we thought it would be a good idea to kind of get this out to everybody. So that's going to be February 14th. And again, I'll send out a link and an invite so everybody will know about that. These meeting topics, they all come from you guys. So as you email me and tell me what you want a presentation on, that's how I'm deciding, or that's how we're deciding to which ones to do. So keep the ideas coming. We're still looking for a treasurer and a vice president. So if you can help out, please do so. And does anybody have anything else to add to today's meeting? Not seeing anybody, I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting for today and let everybody get back to work. And we'll see everybody next month.
Thanks, Dan.
No problem. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Very good today. Appreciated it.
Good. Awesome.